I was trying to explain the idea of a domino effect to my nephew the other day. We set up all these books and toys, and, you push one,
Right.
and eventually a ball drops into a bucket. Classic stuff.
A classic, very linear chain reaction.
Exactly. Linear. But in geopolitics, it feels like the dominoes are, I don't know, heavier, and the reactions are so much more dangerous. I mean, you get a diplomat shaking hands in some office, and suddenly, 3,000 miles away, a pilot is sprinting to an attack helicopter.
That's a powerful image, but it's not really an exaggeration. A signature on a document can genuinely mobilize armies before the ink is even dry.
And that is literally what we're looking at today. We are going to unpack a really high-stakes chain reaction that's happening right now in the Horn of Africa. The headline itself sounds almost bureaucratic. Israel officially recognizes Somaliland.
Sounds like a standard diplomatic update you just scroll past.
You would. But then the next headline pops up. Egypt deploys military forces to Somalia. And we're not talking about a few advisors with clipboards here.
No.
We're talking attack helicopters, we're talking armored vehicles, and over 1,000 troops on the ground.
It's a massive, massive escalation. And I think to understand why a handshake led to a military deployment, you really have to look at the map. You have to look at the Red Sea.
Right. The parking lot for the entire world's economy.
Pretty much, yeah. This isn't just some regional squabble. This is about who controls one of the most vital trade corridors on the entire planet.
So our mission today is to figure out why this specific territory, Somaliland, which has been, basically self-governing for 30 years, is suddenly the flashpoint for a huge regional power struggle.
And we have to ask, what does it mean when the old maps, the borders everyone agreed on, start crashing into the reality of who actually holds power on the ground?
Okay, so let's get into it. The trigger, the catalyst. Israel recognizing Somaliland. Now, I've got to be honest, before digging into these reports, if you'd asked me to point to Somaliland, I'd probably just point to Somalia.
A lot of people would.
I thought it might have been a typo or, a region, like saying the Midwest instead of the U.S.
One of the most common geopolitical confusions out there.
Yeah.
But understanding that distinction is, it's the key to this whole story.
So clear it up for me. What is the actual status here? Is Somaliland a country? A state? What is it?
Well, legally, it's complicated.
Yeah.
But functionally, it's a country. The reports we have describe it as a self-governing territory. But here's the real kicker. They've been operating independently from Mogadishu, from Somalia, since 1991.
Since 1991. Wait, that's over 30 years. That's a whole generation.
Correct. And it's not just that time has passed. It's about what they've managed to build in that time. We so often hear about the persistent insecurity, as the reports call it, in southern Somalia.
All right, the chaos.
Exactly. Somaliland has been on a completely different path.
Different how?
They've built functioning state institutions.
Yeah.
They have their own currency, their own police force. They issue their own passports. And most importantly, they've held multiple elections.
So hold on. You have a place that looks like a state, acts like a state, votes like a state. But the rest of the world just looks at the map and says, nope, still part of Somalia.
That is the friction point. The international community, for the most part, still holds to this one Somalia policy. They see the government in Mogadishu as the only sovereign power. But the reality on the ground, the de facto reality, is that Mogadishu hasn't governed Somaliland for decades.
That seems like a massive disconnect. It's like having a roommate who moved out 30 years ago, bought a house, and raised a family, but you're still trying to claim them on your taxes.
That's actually a surprisingly good analogy. And that's precisely why Israel's move is such a bombshell. By officially recognizing Somaliland, Israel is the one stepping out of that one Somalia consensus.
So why do it? Why is Israel the one to break ranks? They're usually pretty careful with their diplomatic moves.
Well, think about the real estate. Somaliland sits on a very strategic coastline, right on the Gulf of Aden, which feeds directly into the Red Sea.
Location, location, location.
Exactly. If you're Israel, or really any global power, you need reliable partners in that neighborhood to keep shipping secure. You look at the Horn of Africa, you see instability in Sudan, tension between Ethiopia and Eritrea.
All kinds of problems.
Right. And then you see Somaliland stable, relatively democratic, and really eager for international partners.
So it's a pragmatic move. They're betting on the one entity that actually has its house in order.
It's a huge validation of Somaliland's track record. The reports call it a diplomatic breakthrough, and for them it is. It tells the world, we are real, we are here, and we are open for business.
Okay, so Somaliland gets this big diplomatic win from Israel. I imagine they're celebrating in Hargeisa, the capital. But clearly, not everyone was popping champagne.
Definitely not, and this is where the next domino falls. The reaction didn't come in a strongly worded letter from Mogadishu. It came from further north, from Egypt.
And this is where the story gets heavy, literally heavy. We're talking military hardware.
We are. The intelligence reports we've seen detail a very swift, very tangible response. Egypt deployed about 1,100 troops into Somalia.
1,100, that's a full battalion. That's not a token force.
No, it's a significant footprint. And it's not just the number of soldiers. You have to look at the equipment they brought with them.
Okay.
The reports specifically highlight armored vehicles and air assets. To be specific, Mi-24 and Mi-17 helicopters.
Okay, pause there. And Mi-24, that name rings a bell. That's not just a transport helicopter, is it?
Not at all. The Mi-24 is iconic. NATO calls it the Hind. It's an attack helicopter, a gunship. It is heavily armored. It carries rockets, cannons. You don't send a Hind if you're just there to hand out medical supplies.
You send a Hind to control territory, and if you have to, destroy things.
It changes the entire tone. The Mi-17 is more of a transport. Yes, it moves troops. But when you pair troop transports with dedicated attack helicopters...
It's a combined arms force?
Yes. It signals combat readiness. It's a show of force that is designed to be seen and maybe even feared.
And there were rumors it was even bigger.
There were some unconfirmed reports suggesting a larger deployment, but the confirmed data points to that 1,100 number. But even at that level, dropping 1,000 troops and gunships into an already volatile region is a huge move.
So Egypt lands this force in Somalia. They must have a cover story, right? They can't just say, we're here because we're upset with Israel. How are they framing this?
The official line, the rationale, is all about territorial integrity. They're operating under the banner of something called the African Union Mission to support security and stability in Somalia. The acronym is AUSOM.
AUSOM, okay. Sounds friendly.
On paper, the mission is about combating terrorism, specifically groups like Al-Shabaab, and supporting Somalia's unity. The argument is, we're here to help the legitimate government in Mogadishu.
But since Mogadishu sees Somaliland as a rebellious province, an internal threat...
You see the loophole.
Right. We're here to fight terror and keep the country together. But if keeping the country together means stopping Somaliland's independence, then those attack helicopters are effectively pointed north.
That is the very clear implication.
Yeah.
And the reports note this deployment is part of broader military cooperation agreements signed earlier in 2024. So, on paper, Egypt has the invitation from Mogadishu.
But the timing, I mean, come on. Israel recognizes Somaliland and boom, Egyptian troops land. That can't be a coincidence.
There really are no coincidences in geopolitics. This is a direct countermove. Egypt is planting its flag as the primary security partner for Somalia. They're drawing a line in the sand.
So this sets up this really intense clash of narratives. Because depending on your perspective, this is either about defending sovereignty or just denying reality.
That is the absolute core of the tension. Let's start with the one Somalia view, the one held by Mogadishu and Cairo.
Okay, make their case for me.
Their argument is legalistic. It's historical. Somalia is one nation. Its borders are recognized by the UN. And if you let Somaliland just break away because they've been on their own for a while, you risk undermining the entire state. You're violating their sovereignty.
So in their view, what Israel did is just meddling.
It's seen as a hostile act meant to fracture the country. So Egypt's move is framed as, no, we support the map as it is written, we support the central government.
Okay, but then you have the other side, the de facto reality view. Because, I mean, if I haven't lived in my parents' basement for 30 years, it's pretty hard for them to argue I'm still their dependent.
That is precisely the argument that critics of the Egyptian move are making. They say, just look at the reality on the ground. Somaliland has a functioning parliament. It has relative peace. It has a track record.
And advocates for Somaliland would argue that recognizing them isn't causing instability.
Exactly.
It's actually acknowledging the stability that they've already built.
Right. Their point is, if the overall goal is long-term peace in the Horn of Africa, shouldn't you support the one part of the region that's actually figured it out? Why punish the success story?
It's a really good point. I mean, by sending in troops to support unity, aren't you risking a war with the one stable place in the area?
That's the fear. That's the great risk. Critics say Egypt's move completely ignores the political reality. You can't just force unity with gunships. History shows that rarely ends well. It risks turning what has been a cold conflict into a very hot one.
So we have this fundamental clash between what the map says and what's actually happening on the ground, and it's all taking place in a region that is, frankly, already a powder keg.
And we have to zoom out here. We've been focused on Somaliland and Somalia, but we need to look at the larger chessboard they're sitting on,
The Red Sea.
the Red Sea.
Why does everybody care so much about this strip of water? I get that ships go through it, but is it really worth scrambling jets over?
It is the absolute jugular vein of the global economy. A huge percentage of the world's oil, gas, consumer goods, all of it passes through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. If that corridor gets choked off, prices everywhere skyrocket. Economies stall.
So stability there is completely non-negotiable for the big powers.
Correct. And that's why Somaliland's strategic coastline is such a valuable asset. It sits right next to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is the choke point at the southern end of the Red Sea.
So if you're Israel or the U.S. or anyone really, having a stable, friendly partner right there on that coastline is gold.
It's strategic depth. Israel looks at Somaliland and sees a potentially reliable partner in a sea of uncertainty.
But Egypt controls the Suez Canal at the other end of the Red Sea.
Exactly, which means Cairo considers the entire Red Sea corridor to be its backyard, its sphere of influence. They look at any rival power like Israel gaining a new foothold there with a great deal of suspicion.
So this isn't just about Somaliland's independence. This is a proxy fight over who holds the keys to the Red Sea.
It's about leverage. And remember, the report itself describes the Horn of Africa as a shifting geopolitical landscape. This isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right, the source mentioned other fires burning nearby.
You have the civil war in Sudan, which is just catastrophic. You have renewed scrutiny, which is a very diplomatic way of saying rising tension between Ethiopia and Eritrea. The entire region is in flux.
It really feels like the tectonic plates are moving. Old alliances are breaking apart, new ones are being formed.
And that makes every single move more dangerous.
Yeah.
When the whole landscape is shifting, a deployment like Egypt's isn't just a local issue. It sends shockwaves across the entire region. It forces everyone else, Ethiopia, the Gulf states, the West, to recalculate.
Let's just circle back to the hardware for a second. On one side, you have diplomatic recognition, that's soft power. And on the other, you have My 24 Heinz, that's very hard power.
It's a stark contrast. Israel is using a pen, and Egypt is using a sword.
But, and maybe this is a paradox, does the sword, in a way, validate the pen?
That's a fascinating way to put it.
I mean, think about it. If Somaliland was just some irrelevant, rebellious province, why would you need 1,100 troops and gunships to deal with it? Doesn't the sheer scale of the reaction prove that Somaliland is a real, significant entity?
It certainly suggests the current status quo is incredibly fragile. If the one Somalia concept was actually strong, it wouldn't need foreign military hardware to prop it up. By deploying such a heavy force, Egypt and Mogadishu are, perhaps inadvertently, signaling just how serious they consider the threat of Somaliland's independence to be.
It's like, methinks the lady doth protest too much, but with armored personnel carriers.
Chuckles. Essentially, yes, it elevates the entire issue. Somaliland is no longer just a local political anomaly. It's now the centerpiece of a regional military standoff.
My worry, though, is this. You have these troops on the ground under this Assam banner. Their stated mission is counterterrorism. Their presence is deeply political. What happens if there's an incident?
Right.
What happens if a Somaliland patrol bumps into an Egyptian-backed unit?
That's the nightmare scenario. When you mix a fight against terror with enforcing national borders, the lines get incredibly blurry. Are those troops there to stop al-Shabaab, or are they there to create a de facto blockade of Somaliland? If Hargeisa feels threatened, they might mobilize their own forces. And then suddenly, you have two armies facing off.
And the dominoes just keep on falling.
The report concludes that the debate over Somaliland status is, quote, set to intensify. I think that might be the understatement of the year. We are watching a realignment of alliances that could define this region for the next decade.
So for someone listening, trying to make sense of all this, why should they care, beyond just the geography lesson?
Because stability isn't just some abstract concept. It's the price of gas. It's the safety of the products on our shelves. But even deeper than that, it's a fundamental question about how we organize the world.
How so?
We live in a world of nation-states. But what actually makes a nation? Is it just having a seat at the UN? Or is it the ability to provide security, clean water, and democratic elections for your people?
And Somaliland has the security and the elections. Somalia has the UN seat.
Precisely. And this conflict forces us to confront which of those definitions matters more. Can we keep ignoring the reality of Somaliland just to keep the old maps looking tidy? Or do we risk the potential chaos of redrawing those borders?
That's the gamble.
It is. And right now, the chips are being placed on the table in the form of recognition letters and attack helicopters.
Okay, so to recap, because we've covered a lot of ground, we started with Israel recognizing a self-governing territory that's been de facto independent for 30 years.
I was the catalyst.
Then we saw the reaction, Egypt swooping in with a major military force to prop up the central government in Somalia.
The countermove.
And underneath all of that is this huge strategic fight for the Red Sea corridor, with major powers all jockeying for position in a region that's already shaking.
It's a perfect storm of diplomacy, military strategy, and history all coming to a head at once.
You know, we talk about stability all the time on this show. Everybody says they want stability in the Horn of Africa. The U.S. wants it. Egypt wants it. Israel wants it.
Everyone agrees on the goal. They just violently disagree on how to actually get there.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with. If stability is the ultimate prize in one of the world's most strategically vital regions, does the path forward lie in enforcing old borders that maybe don't reflect reality anymore? Or does it lie in finally acknowledging the political realities of the people who've actually managed to build stability on their own?
It's the question of whether we should shape the map to fit the world, or keep trying to force the world to fit the map.
And judging by the helicopters landing in Mogadishu, the fight over that answer is really just getting started.
Indeed it is.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll be watching this one closely.
Until next time.
See ya.